Welcome to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast, providing business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs with the 3 INS: insights, inspirations, and intentional actions. Delivered through monologues and dialogues, we address topics like leadership, productivity, time management, work-life balance, and challenges like stress, conflict, mental health, and much more. Please do not hold back from suggesting specific topics and guests you would like on this podcast. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success. Today, I want to talk about failure and failing. Yes, I know it's not necessarily the most exciting topic, but on the other hand, it is a very powerful topic because if we can find ways of dealing with failure so that it propels us forward rather than knocking us back or knocking us out, wouldn't that be a good thing? And then, of course, we're going to relate that to mental fitness because the better our mental fitness is, the better able we are to deal with failures or deal with failing. And the worse our mental fitness is, the harder it gets, and the more we're going to try and avoid it. And let's just be straight up here, is that there's no way of avoiding failure. It's just not possible. So realizing that, then we can choose to either accept that or try and fight against it. And I think you already know the answer to that is that fighting against it. Yeah, it's not that we have to go out and try desperately to fail just because it's a cool thing to do. Definitely not. It is when it comes our way. Let's deal with it in a way that is useful. The other side of this, why I chose this topic today, is I've just been thinking back over these 9-10 months, I think is coming up soon of this podcast, and all the guests I've had on. And if I were to pick one element that rings true in almost, if not all of those episodes, it is about failing forward. Now that's a term I learned. It's not a term that my guests have used, but they have explained it in a multitude of different ways. But the essence for all of them and the success that they have created, a lot of that came from the failures they had, the being knocked over, the falling off the horse, and the ability to get back on that horse, which is again taking that failure and learning from it, and then, of course, try to not fall off the horse again. And of course, we're going to fall off again, but hopefully the next falling off will be a different falling off so we can learn some different things from it instead of keep falling off in the exact same way. And other ways that guests have kind of pointed that out is growing from our mistakes, because we are going to make mistakes. And the term that I tend to refer to in those conversations is failing forward. I just love that play with words. And I did mention that actually in the last episode when I talked about Roger Hamilton and the wealth dynamics, because it's from Roger Hamilton that I learned that term, and I fell in love with that straight away. It's such a cool way of putting it. So we're failing. But instead of failing backwards and ending up on our back and looking up at the sky and going, oh no, and then staying there in that pain for too long. Failing forward is that we can fail and move forward in that. And you're going to find if you fail backwards and end up on your back, it's actually a little bit harder to get back up standing. Whereas you're failing forward and you fall flat on your face, it's relatively easy to get back up standing. So I just invite you to have that picture next time you are not falling, but failing. And from that viewpoint that I'm failing forward so that I'm still moving forward in my journey of growing my business, growing myself, growing my my skills as a parent or as a husband or a wife. And with that picture in mind, as there's that stumbling forward, it's easier to catch that step and come back up and keep moving forward and going, oh, what did I just stumble over there? What happened here? And then using that as a learning opportunity to move or to continue to move forward. So if you haven't watched that episode, last episode was episode a couple of episodes ago, 36, where I talk more about the failing forward, but more about the wealth dynamics and the Entrepreneurs Institute and Roger Hamilton and all that good stuff. If you haven't seen that, I really recommend for you to go and do that. Let's see how does failing relate to our topic of mental fitness, and why is it okay to fail? So when we are failing forward, what we are actually building is resilience. This word keeps coming up everywhere, right? In people's personal life and in business lives. If we don't have the resilience to keep moving and ideally keep moving forward, or at least what we believe is forward, then we are more likely then to sit back and give up and say, "Oh, no, it's not for me," or "I can't do this," or "It's probably the wrong thing I'm doing." And the mind is totally happy to look for a multitude of excuses for why I should not get back up, why I should not get back to the gym, and just stay and have another cup of tea and watch some more YouTube clips. So our minds are, most of our minds, definitely mine, is very, very creative in coming up with reasons for not moving forward when there is a knock over or a fail. And the more we have built our mental fitness along the way, the more likely we are to be able to handle that and then move forward. So it becomes a failing forwards rather than failing into stagnation or into giving up. So relating it to mental fitness, there is, as per usual, two sides to the coin. And at one level, we need to have good mental fitness to be able to fail forward and make that conscious decision to learn from this mistake and then keep going. We may need to adjust where we are going and how we are going, but we keep moving forward. That takes in ourselves mental fitness. If we haven't built that, then we are less likely to be able to do that, and we will get knocked over or knocked back more and more often. So that's a good incentive, I think, to keep working on our mental fitness as a preparation for dealing with challenges and dealing with so-called failures. The other side of the coin is that failing gives us the opportunity to grow our mental fitness. So it is both a tool for growing and also a way to test how good our mental fitness is. When we come out of a failure, if we are going into our mind and listening to all the crap in there about how bad we are and it's going to keep happening and I can never get this right and what's wrong with me or what's wrong with somebody else that might have caused that failure, which they're going to keep doing. Instead of going into all of that, whether it's self-pity or it is blaming and pointing the fingers at somebody else, that does not lead to the growth of mental fitness. That is just feeding those inner voices that at some level have something invested in keeping us down. The alternative is to pause for a moment. You can sit down. You don't have to get straight up and running again. And sit down and go, okay, what just happened here? How am I feeling in this moment? So there are two aspects to that. One aspect is, did I do something right now that made me trip over in this business venture or out running and tripping over? What did I fall over? Okay, I need to look out for that. So we can do a little bit of analysis of what caused this failure and what do I need to look out for in the future? What do I need to avoid? What do I need to change? So that's at the practical level. But the other level is the mental fitness level, where we can, in that moment, go, okay, so how am I feeling right now? Well, I might be feeling shit, or I might be feeling angry, or I might be feeling worried. And what we can then do is just to take a few breaths into that. I got a number of episodes back in the early days where I talk a lot about breathing and the power of breathing. And having practiced that, if you've done that, you can then bring that into these moments of breathing into that. And in that, we don't need to go into therapy. We don't need to go into finding out why we're feeling this way and what's the background and what happened when I was two. You can if you like, but in most cases, it actually doesn't move you forward. But just feeling and honoring this moment of what am I experiencing right now? Because that experience is real. Yeah. And honoring that which is real, not wallowing in it, by the way. So don't sit there for 6 hours in that discomfort, because that's most likely not going to get you anywhere. Just notice it, breathe into it, acknowledge it because it's real in that moment. And if you sit with that and you build a little bit of mental fitness to be able to sit in that discomfort, you're going to find that after a little while, it is going to either dissipate and your drive and your energy is back. And then you can focus on where is it that I'm going? Do I need to make some adjustments after this fail? And then move forward. Or the other thing that can happen is in that sitting in that, some clarity sometimes will come about yourself, some learning, some self-discovery of, this is what made that trigger for me, and this gives me a little bit of more deeper understanding of who I am, so that next time a similar thing happens, I can kind of see it happening in real time and catch it quicker and let things go quicker that I don't need to hold on to. So we do not need to hold on to that pain or that discomfort or that anxiety or that anger, even though a part of our mind, the ego part of our mind, would love to hold on to that because it's good food for that part of our mind. It just doesn't serve us. And that is not failing forward. That is failing backwards or failing into stagnation. So there is always a silver lining in a failure. That's not in question. We have stories both on my podcast and plenty of other stories you have heard of people who have experienced really, really terrible things. And then later in life, whether a few days or a few years, a couple of decades later, recognizing or realizing the silver lining in that and how it changed their life for the better. And it doesn't really matter the size of the failure. There's always a silver lining in it. I don't think that's in question. And I think you will agree with me that it's always there, at least when we have a long enough distance from that moment. So therefore, my invitation to both myself and to you is learn and practice to find the silver lining faster. So instead of taking 10 years, take 1 year. Instead of taking 1 year, take a month. Instead of taking a month, take a week. Instead of taking a week, take a day. Instead of taking a day, take an hour. Instead of taking an hour, take a minute. Instead of taking a minute, take a couple of seconds. The quicker you recognize the silver lining in your current situation, however uncomfortable and shit it may be, The quicker you recognize that, the quicker you're going to have a smile back on your face and be back on the horse, back moving forward. And that is the essence of mental fitness. Mental fitness is the ability to meet our challenges in a positive way. Because when we meet these failures in a positive way, we are automatically failing forward. So that's the essence uh, of that. And a story I've shared a number of times with my guest episodes, and I'll share it here with you today as well, in case you're not watching my guest episodes, is but when at times giving presentations to business groups, I will, and we are talking in that about this phenomenon of success, I will ask the question, because typically in that we would have talked about failure at some level and the importance of not trying to avoid failure, but how to deal with failure when it happens. So I'll ask the question, who fails the most? Successful people or unsuccessful people? And we all know that none of us love failure. I mean, that would be very unusual, or even like failure. Well, I certainly don't like it. But I don't particularly try to avoid it either, because I know that there's always a learning in it. So standing there in front of a group of business people and asking that question, you can kind of see at some level that kind of their heads are going down, because they don't want to fail. But you can also see something else shifting in their mind because they already know the answer. Now, they don't want to fail, but they also have to admit to me and each other that the people who fail the most in general are the more successful people. So you could turn around and say, the more you fail, the more successful you're likely to be. And that is only true if you have the mental fitness to back it up. If you don't, it becomes a downward spiral where you eventually give up entirely in whatever way that may look. And you then have to, live with that, which is an incredibly heavy burden to live with. So again, building our mental fitness for me is the solution to pretty much anything at the mental level. So one last thing to this for today is no, don't particularly go looking for failure just to learn to fail forward and to learn from your mistakes. Because in general, you don't have to. You know, they're gonna come around regardless. So enjoy it when there is no failures and things are moving forward in a beautiful way. And be ready. And I want to tie that into an incredible episode. Relative to this episode, it was the last one. So that would be episode 37, where I had JD Tremblay from Canada on. And he's only one out of three people in the world who have completed the epic Decker back in 2022, which was 10 Ironman in 10 consecutive days. Yes, I know. That is absolutely insane. But sitting down with him and having a conversation with him, what a wonderful human being he is. If you haven't watched that episode, I can really, really recommend it. And there's one thing from that episode I want to bring up, and that was something that I've never heard said before in that way, and I really, really loved it. He said, no matter what you're going to do, it's going to be hard. If you go out for a run, it's going to be hard. If you don't and you sit on the couch, it's going to be hard. No matter what we choose, it's going to be hard. Because if you stay on the couch for a very, very long time, you're going to get up in some serious trouble. Hmm? And if you go and run and you do that way too much, That's going to be hard as well. But if you are running in a way that is exercising and growing your physical fitness, it's going to be hard as well. It's going to be times, oh, I don't want to do this now. It's cold, it's raining, and I'm not enjoying this right now. But if you have a goal in mind, like in his case of doing multiple marathons in a row, it's going to be hard. And I really like, I had to think about that for a moment when he said that. And I recognize the truth in that, that no matter what path we take in our lives, whether we want to start our own business, that's going to be hard. Whether we don't want to have that hassle and just go and get a job, that's also going to be hard. Different hard, but hard nevertheless. So therefore, his advice to the audience was pick your hard carefully. Like really choose what hard it is that you want. Not exercising and having the heart of poor health, maybe heart attacks, other diseases, and the pain that comes with that. Is that the heart you want? Or do you want the heart of exercising when you don't want to exercise? So that tying that into this topic of failing and failing forward, we don't need to go looking for failure, but we can choose our heart, knowing that if I pick that heart, then there's going to be this level of challenge that I need to deal with, and most likely this level of failures that I'm going, these or hurdles that I need to overcome along the way. Whereas if I go over here to pick this heart, it will be most likely a different set of challenges, different set of failures that I'm going to experience that I need to find ways of moving through. So with that, I hope that bringing some of these different angles into this, that you at this moment in time look at failure maybe in a little bit more positive way, which means in a little bit more mental fit way. So with that, finishing off today, and as always, look out for ways that you can grow your mental fitness. Till next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success. If you have stories of how mental fitness has benefited you that you are happy to share, go to my website, mikal.nz, click on podcast and fill in the guest application form. If you want direct support from me utilizing my 40 years of mental fitness learning and practice, email me at coach@mikal.nz or message me on LinkedIn. Any feedback, review, share, follow, like, or any other good stuff is of course appreciated. Thank you for listening to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast. I'm your host, Mikal Nielsen.